Hello everyone, and welcome to my Week 2 discussion board presentation. The first concept I'll be going over is social exchange theory in Chapter 1, found on page 8. The textbook discusses how people make choices based on self-interest and how conflicts arise once people perceive that their rewards are too low or other parties are receiving a higher reward than themselves. It's very important to identify the needs and values of each party involved to come up with even trade-offs between the two party members. The text discusses scholars such as Marvel and Schmidt who identified certain techniques that are utilized by opposing party members for the influence of exchanging of resources. In their paper, Marvel and Schmidt had 608 college students complete a questionnaire in which they were able to choose between 16 compliance gaining techniques and use those on 4 different situations or scenarios, being job, family, sales, or roommate related. The insight that I got from reading the paper was that from the results, from the 5-factor groupings of techniques, the highest utilized grouping was that the first factor, titled reward activity, which comprised pre-giving, liking, and promise, which kind of shows that people have a tendency to approach things in a positive manner versus a negative or threatening manner. The second concept I'll be talking about comes from Chapter 2, page 16, Sources of Conflict. Our textbook talks about the importance of identifying underlying issues that may lead to bad feelings to arise between individuals, thus resulting in strained relationships. There are many sources of conflict that can lead to issues that negatively affect working relationships, and there could be multiple conflicts occurring at once, not just one at a time. One of the most common sources of conflicts is communication. Our textbook discusses a study conducted by Stafford and Daly that found that people only recall about 9% of previous conversations that happened a few days ago. Taking a closer look at the study, they had 128 college students pair up randomly, and each pair had a 7-minute conversation that was video recorded. They then watched a 5-minute video on a Hawaii tour video to distract them, which after they watched the video, they were then asked to recall their conversations. From the results, on average, each participant could only recall just roughly about 10% of their 7-minute conversation, which they had just no more than 10 minutes ago, which was quite shocking to me. The study also talked about other interesting findings. One of the things that I thought was insightful was that most participants recalled more on what their partner's contributions were to the conversation versus what they themselves talked about. I thought this was an important source or possible conflict of communication, since sometimes we forget what we promise or what things we agree to do at the workplace or with loved ones or friends. So it's important to keep in mind what things we agree to or commit to. The third concept I'll be talking about is comparison of conflict styles, which is in Chapter 2, page 27. Here the textbook talks about some studies done by Phillips and Cheston, where they compared the effectiveness of 5 different conflict resolution styles, which are avoidance, forcing, accommodating, compromising, and problem solving. In their studies, they found that problem solving was had the most positive effects, while the forcing approach, which was used more than twice as much as problem solving, had a 50% failure rate, and the avoidance tactic had the highest failure rate of 80%. So this goes to show that avoiding conflict or issues at work isn't the best way to go about it. Going over the Phillips and Cheston paper, they had really good definitions and examples of their 5 conflict resolution styles, and I definitely recommend you reading it and looking it over. One of the takeaways I got from the paper is that a good leader can use both problem solving and forcing approach in their work environment, and that there are 5 characteristics of situations that can help indicate which is the preferred method to use. And those 5 characteristics of situations are: 1, the conflict of issue; 2, the power relationship; 3, the climate for resolution; 4, the existing procedures for resolution; and 5, the long-term potential for reoccurrence of the conflict. The final concept I'll be covering is factors that promote mutual gains in negotiation in Chapter 3, page 48. This section talks about how important trust is in order for negotiating parties to move forward with compromising agreements and resolutions. The text discusses the 3 levels of trust that occurs in business negotiations proposed by Shapiro et al. Here, the lowest level of trust is deterrence, where each party member agrees to small commitments. The second higher level of trust is achieved by knowledge and the sharing of information between parties. And the third and highest level of trust is identification, which is associated with relationships and the confidence between the relationships of both parties involved. The paper has really good information on how to build trust in negotiations, and on page 375 of the paper there's a good table that shows the benefits, costs, and risks of each type of trust level that's implemented. These are the references I used for my presentation. Thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to watching your presentations.